Your president is watching. America is watching. But more important, Godfather is watching. Make no mistake, there will be no fuck-ups. Marines around this world would give their left nuts to be where you are. Anybody not want to go? Marines, kill on 3. 1, 2, 3. Kill!
With a need to bleed you when the light goes green. Best believe I'm in the zone to be. From a yin to my yang to Z. Put a grin on my chin when you come to me. Cause I'll win, I'm a one of a kind. And I'll bring death to the place you're about to be. Another river of blood running under my feet. Forged in a fire lit long ago. Stand next to me, you'll never stand alone. I'm last to leave, but the first to go. Lord, make me dead before you make me whole. I feed on the fear of the devil inside of the enemy faces in my sight. Aim with a hand, shoot with a mind, kill with a heart like Arctic ice.
I am a soldier and I'm marching on.
I am a soldier and I'm marching on.
I am a warrior, this is my song.
I am a warrior and this is my song. I'm basking the glow of the rising war. Lay waste to the ground of an enemy shore. Wade through the blood spilled on the floor. And if another one stands, I'll kill some more. Bullet in the breach and a fire in me. Like a cigarette thrown to gasoline. If death don't bring you fear, I swear you'll fear these marching feet. Come to the nightmare, come to me. Deep down in the dark where the devil be. To the mall where the jaws and the razor teeth. Where the brimstone burns and the angel weeps. Crawl to the gods of across your path. And my silhouette hangs like a body bag. Hope is a moment now long past. The shadow of death is the one I cast. I am a soldier and I'm marching on. I am a warrior and this is my song. My eyes are steel and my gaze is long. I am a warrior and this is my song.
We're not just going to shoot the bastard. We're going to cut out their living guts and use them to grease the treads of our tanks. We're going to murder those lousy bastards by the bushel.
Now I live lean and I mean to inflict the grief. And the least of me is still out of your reach. The killing machine's gonna do the deed until the river runs dry and my last breath leaves. Chin in the air with a head held high. I'll stand in the path of the enemy line. Feel no fear, know my pride. For God and country I'll enjoy life. I am a soldier and I'm marching on. I am a warrior and this is my song. My eyes are steel and my gaze is long. I am a warrior and this is my song.
And good evening, everyone, and welcome to Cold War Radio live from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. I'm your host, Hutch Bailey Jr. Let's go due west of here, and let's welcome Sal to the program from Western PA. Hello, Sal. Come in, please.
Roger.
There he is.
I am here, sir. The mouth was working, but the fingers weren't. And finally, the brain connected the two.
Been there before, sir. Been there before, no doubt about it. Let's go to the Emerald City of the South, where you can still go to Winn-Dixie or Piggly Wiggly. You can eat at Varsity, and you can stop by a roadside stand and get some boiled peanuts. Hello, Stacy Rush.
Evening, Hutch and Sal. I hope you guys are doing well, and hello to everybody out there listening tonight.
All right, this is going to be an interesting one tonight. Ladies and gentlemen, please follow me on Spreaker. Like the Facebook page, facebook.com/Cold War Radio 22. The email is scrtv@live.com. Cold War Radio patron hotline, 412-206-6208. You can catch the podcast at the 405media.com, iHeartRadio, RD Elephant, the Cold War Radio app, YouTube, and just about anywhere where they host podcasts. Use the hashtag Cold War Radio on Twitter. And please go to steelcityresistance.com, where you can catch the research room that contains just a plethora of information for your debating purposes or studying purposes. Become a Cold War Radio patron or subscribe on Subscribestar. Catch the video page, which shows the videos of the audio clips, most of the audio clips that we play on the program, and sometimes other links that we feel that you would be interested in. Sometimes we put in-depth topics and stories up, but there's only so much time in the show, so you can do your backup reading there. If you'd like to write to the program, please write to Cold War Radio, P.O. Box 96022, Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania 15226. Cold War Radio. All right, ladies and gentlemen, a lot going on right now in the middle of an active shooter. It was, as of the time I came in the studio at 7:30, shooting in Philadelphia. Fortunately, at least the last time I checked, there was 6 shot, no KIA at this point. A couple police officers possibly in the target building with the shooter and with some other suspects. Not real sure. The first swipes at these kind of things tend to be overblown or underblown or things like that. There's one thing I know, the coverage, and I hope some of you guys listened to it or watched it. I saw something today that really ticked me off. I mean, I saw a report of this right before I came in the studio, an hour or so. Witness says over 100 rounds she heard. And for the next 15 minutes, every anchor on Fox News said hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of rounds. I'm thinking, man, that wasn't too good. I mean, they got one. Stacy, were you following this at all?
Yeah, I was listening to it on the way home. Was the first time that I heard about it today, and I heard exactly what you were talking about, the hundreds of rounds. You know, my question is, I'm imagining we won't be hearing from liberals about gun control since police and criminals were involved. It's as if they don't give a crap if police officers are shot out and if criminals have guns. So it'll be interesting to see if this falls into their narrative. I'm sure it won't. I'm
sure it won't either, other than the fact of banning high-capacity magazines might come out. The thing is, that the good thing, Sal, you can tell it's a leftist, because he fired hundreds of rounds and nobody's dead, just like at the ball field.
He for sure doesn't go to the range. That we know that. The second thing is I'd like to point out that this happens probably on a semi regular basis in Chicago, and it receives very little attention from the mainstream media. Maybe an ad here or there, maybe a flash kind of thing, over the weekend this happened. But this is a daily occurrence in a place like Chicago, in a place like Baltimore, in a place like Washington, D.C. So I'm a little bit dismayed, other than, law enforcement's involved in this one. Why aren't the other cities with violence getting attention. I don't know why. I'm going to take a wild guess why, and I won't guess right. I won't give you the guess right away. But this does involve law enforcement. This may involve a state that does allow. It is very, and I hate to use this word, liberal with guns. They, this is Pennsylvania is an open carry state. I think Philadelphia is restricted from that.
Yes, they've got their own regulations. Absolutely,
right. They have their own regulations, but I just have a feeling that the media wants to hop on this one. Of course, you don't want to see any law enforcement shot, but I just think that yes, I actually, Stacy, I think that the left wants to see this amplified.
Well, one thing you can be sure of, and that's you're not going to see anybody come out and say this gun was purchased legally. You're not going to hear that because it wasn't. I'm sure. Maybe it was, but we'll see. I'm going to guess you're not going to hear that report though. The way this works. So anyway, we pray for the police officers in Philadelphia. Juan Williams was on with Martha McCallum, and being a former police beat reporter in Philadelphia in his ute, he said some crazy things about the amount of drugs that have been seized recently at the port of Philadelphia. I'm talking tons of cocaine. I can't even imagine tons of cocaine, other than the fact that if you have tons of cocaine, you're going to have somebody like this guy in the house shooting at the cops if they come for it, So I don't know. It's we'll figure it out. We'll see where the story goes, and we hope law enforcement. Rocky in the chat room said, they know how to do this. If you remember in the 80s, the MOVE organization, the Africa family, which wasn't really a family, but the mayor authorized the police to put a satchel charge on the roof of the building and burned an entire city block down. I'll never forget that, man. That was nuts watching that on television. But wow. Anyway, we'll see what happens. All right, let's get into some of the things that are going on today. You guys have heard of Dennis Prager of PragerU, very intelligent Jewish man. Has a big educational network, PragerU on YouTube. It was defunded or demonetized a couple times. I don't know the current status of it, but he went on a rant recently, and he's so true. He's so right, rather. I mean, I want you to listen to Dennis Prager finally get fed up and describe the Democrat field of primary candidates.
The conservative answer, in fact, the Judeo-Christian / conservative answer to how can we do good is get married and make good people in your family. That's the real answer. Yeah. Make a nice community. The left macroizes all this good. We don't look to politics to make a better America. We believe it is an immense contribution to raise good children. What better thing could you possibly do in life than make good children, or good nieces and nephews, or treat your neighbor? That's why when I teach the Bible, that's why I beg people to get my Rational Bible. These are the things that I teach. It says love your neighbor as yourself. It doesn't say love the whole world as yourself. It doesn't say love everyone as yourself. You know why? Because it's so hard to love your neighbor. It's easy to love everyone. The left loves everyone. They crap on their neighbor. Almost every leftist is a mean human being. There are a lot of decent liberals. There are some mean conservatives, but every leftist is mean. There's a meanness at the core. I look at these people standing up, these demagogues at these Democratic debates. They stink as people. They don't just stink as Democrats. They stink as human beings. They lie with the ease with which you breathe. Cory Booker is a fraud. Elizabeth Warren is a fool, is a liar. Hey, I'm an Indian. She still stands by it. These are not good people. I wish I didn't believe that. I wish they were just good people I differed with. There are good people I differ with. Brett Stephens is a giant, and he hates Trump. These are not decent people. They're demagogues. Beto O'Rourke? It's hard to get lower than Beto O'Rourke. He is slime. He is slime. When he speaks, I wish to throw up. These are not good people. Buttigieg is a fraud. He's a total fraud. Oh, look, I was in the military. I am clean cut. But I want to abolish the Electoral College. I, Buttigieg, at 35, know better how America should be run of the country because I'm an arrogant SOB. That's why. They're all arrogant. What did the founders know? Electoral College. Oh, we don't want that. We want direct vote for president. Oh, you know better, you fraud? Our answer to how to make a better society is get married and make a good family and join a church and treat your neighbors well. That's our answer. Their answer is change, fundamentally transform the United States of America. That's their answer. Whew. Well, Emily, you certainly turned me on. It's a passionate issue. That's what we believe. Just lead an honorable life, you make a better world. That's the Jewish and Christian and conservative answer. Their answer is let the men run in races. If they think they're women, let them win. Think that's moral? Think that's moral, folks?
Pretty powerful stuff, Stacy. I mean, Dennis Prager, he's got his finger on this, and this is a guy that's usually very reserved. Wow, big words.
Yeah, that was, and it was very powerful to hear him say what he said. And I agree with what he said. I agree on both sides. I agree that these are despicable human beings that are running for office at this moment in time. And I agree about how Christians and Jewish people live their lives and feel like, if we do our best and if we are good neighbors and if we raise good children, we will leave a better society. The problem I have with what he said, and maybe he went on and talked about it later, I don't know, is that because we have lived this way, the left has taken over the country. They've taken over institutions and they've been successful with ruining many, many things because of how we choose to live our lives and what we believe. And I think that that's the frustrating part for me at this moment in time, is that I feel exactly the way that he stated, but I feel like we must do something because we can no longer just raise good children and care for our neighbors because it's gone too far to the left.
Well, that's sad, and it's probably true. I think that we do need to do some things, and I think we need to do zero legislatively. I don't think anything the federal government can do, like Dennis Prager said, nothing is going to be legislated. We have to. What did they always say on the left, Sal? You can't legislate morality. When we would talk about different social issues, and I agree with that. I know you can't, but you can certainly find a way. The left has found a way to subsidize single parent homes. I mean, they pay people to have single family homes, certainly single parent homes. Certainly we can try to incentivize marriage or something. I mean, it's not I don't think you're going to punish anybody into fixing this, and that's normally what happens when legislation is passed, it seems.
Yeah, well, the one thing you didn't also mention is climate change. They can fix everything. They have a solution for everything. They have a solution for everything, and each one of those that he has talked about has done absolutely next to nothing in the real world. They haven't produced anything. They haven't provided any real services to anyone. What do they have to show of doing anything and actually producing anything? It's zero. Absolutely nothing.
But you can look on the negative side, though, because some of them are former mayors. Buttigieg, Rex South Bend.
I'm talking about they've been in public life. They have not been in the private workforce. As far as I think any one of those that he's mentioned, they have not produced anything of services, of value, production, nothing. Zero. They are a net zero. All their ideas are they're so cockamamie. I don't even know where to start with each one of them. They're out of their minds. They're kooks.
You're right.
They are kooks.
And the thing is, back to what you were saying, Stacy, one of the other things that's quite unfortunate, it doesn't happen here to any great extent, but a lot of people are being intimidated into being quiet. I think you're going to see that when the general election comes around. I could see a large portion of the electorate falling for the lie of Barack Obama. I could see that. I know there was a lot of white people, especially, that really wanted to put this wasteful, fraudulent, racist claims right out the window, so they voted for him.
Right.
And I think you're going to see people that are going to reject. There's a couple issues that these people talk about that will turn off a lot of thinking people. Free health care to illegal aliens, and every single one of them raises their hands. They can't take that back. Trump is not going to let them take that back, no matter which one it is.
And I think that this will be the first election where, people who pay attention to the primaries know that you typically run far to the left, far to the right to get the nomination. But then in the general, you try and come back more to the center. And I think this is going to be the first election where they're not going to be able to get away with it. I agree with you. I think that Trump and his team are going to hold him accountable. I think the new media is going to hold them accountable. And I do agree that it turns off the majority of Americans. But I also see a lot of fatigue that can be generated there as well. I think we've got the media complex out there, who are constantly beating Trump up. I think we're going to have the Federal Reserve trying to put the brakes on this economy. And I think that with Google and the things that Project Veritas discovered, that we're going to have some issues with people not really understanding what the truth is out there if they're not able to find it, for example.
No, I agree with that, and I've got something on that as we go through the program. But I think that if we had a situation where it was just normal leftist policies versus quote unquote conservative policies, I think we would be much more at risk of Google and Facebook and everybody else putting their thumb on the scale. But I think that the arguments that the Democrats are making, the candidates, now remember, the Democrat debates are available to everybody. They're not shadow banning any of that. So everybody gets to see that match, at least for now. They might start shadow banning them, but for right now, I think any average person, you're seeing these Democrat candidates show up in Iowa and New Hampshire, and they're getting challenged. I mean, there was a lady in a nursing home that told Kamala Harris, "Don't mess with my health care." And then this is a good one. Buttigieg was up in Iowa, and he's talking to a woman, and the woman said, I guess as she's shaking his hand, "I shook Robert Kennedy's hand in 1968, a woman tells Pete Buttigieg. And he answers, "Oh, so you're good luck?" he asks. And she says, "Not really. He was shot a month later." God rest his soul, but you know what I mean? It's that kind of season. I mean, I don't think they're going to be able to hide from the madness that they're spewing. I mean, Joe Biden is I think he has dementia. He doesn't look like the same to Joe Biden. We've been watching Joe Biden all our lives, Sal.
No, you told me something a few months ago And what'd you tell me? You remember? It's
Yeah.
2 words. Gaff machine.
Right,
And
right.
he's been going strong. He has been gaff machine. He's going really strong, and just wait until it maybe starts to get serious for him.
I think the powers that be in the Democrat world, I honestly, I'm not sure that we've even seen the Democrat candidate yet. I mean, we've seen him, but we haven't seen him on the stage. I just look at this field. I listened to Hugh Hewitt by accident the other day, and he said he swears that Kamala Harris will be the nominee. And to me, of the people that are on the stage right now, she is the best. I mean, she sucks, but she has the best combat skills, I think. And you know, she's quick on her feet, Stacy. And
Sorry, hounds have been unleashed here at the house.
Quite all
If
right.
you-
It's a dog-friendly show.
Okay, so you guys will hear that in the background, and I'm so sorry, but I do think she's going to be the nominee. I do. I think it's either going to be her or Elizabeth Warren, and I think that if either or ends up getting the nomination, you might even see the other running as vice president, and I think that that's going to pose a problem for Donald Trump. The only thing that I don't think will pose a problem for him is what you spoke about before, and that is their leftist policies and the fact that they're not going to be able to get away from them. But if you remember how dumb America was and how anxious they were and excited they were to vote for the first black president, I think they will be equally as stupid and equally as excited to vote for the first female president. And I think that it's going to pose a problem for Trump. I do, and especially Kamala, because she is a good debater, and that is not Trump's strong suit. And I think it'll be quite the contrast to Trump. And and Hillary was just so dang unlikable and untrustable that I think she could be a problem. I don't think that she'll win, but I think that she could be a problem.
I agree. That's what I was thinking when you were talking. I'm like, yeah, well, he's still going to whoop her. But she said today she wants Stacey Abrams to be her vice presidential pick, maybe. So that would be a double whammy. That'd be the first all-female, all-black, whatever you want to identity
That's just
politics.
disgusting to me, as that woman is out talking about people stealing elections.
Oh, I know.
She disgusts me, and I pray she's not on the ticket with Kamala. If Kamala gets the ticket, I just think she is a terrible representative here in Georgia. I think she is the biggest liar as far as our voting system, and the fact that if anybody is stealing elections, it's the Democrats, and as you can tell, that just she crawls all over me.
And you would think that somebody who was going to be dedicate her life to public service and news cameras and things, you'd think she'd get those teeth fixed. I mean, there's like a half-inch wide gap in between. I can't take her serious just for looking at her, Sal. That's just me. I mean, I'm not trying to...
I can't take any of them serious because of the bull crap that comes out of their mouths.
Right.
Who cares about looks? All the bull crap that comes out of their mouth, it's worse than diarrhea.
And I agree with you guys wholeheartedly about their policies, but I think as a group of activists and as a group of people who are involved, we need to make sure that we're talking to our friends and neighbors, making sure that people are registered to vote, because people are stupid in this country, and they will vote based on their emotions. And it's a scary situation that, yes, we don't take what they say seriously, but unfortunately there are some real idiots out there who can still cast a vote.
Sure, just like we're going to talk about, if you like your plan, you can keep it. Remember that lie? There's a lot of they're lying once every 30 seconds. That's at the minimum.
Oh, and to see Buttigieg, I'm personally offended by him because he was a member of the U.S. military, and now he's everything that comes out of his mouth is unconstitutional, and he's already managed to really wreck South Bend, Indiana, I guess, and that's just like Cory Booker and Newark, New Jersey. I'm scared to go to Newark, New Jersey. That's a place I'm not going to anytime soon. It's just the way it is. And Kamala Harris, I mean, she's got her own baggage with Willie Brown, a married man. Ladies and gentlemen, healthcare analyst Dr. David Hogberg is a former senior fellow at the National Center for Public Policy Research. He is the author of Medicare's Victims, How the U.S. Government's Largest Healthcare Program Harms Patients and Impairs Physicians. Good evening, Dr. Hogberg. Thank you for coming on to the program. I hope I pronounced your name right. I'm Hutch Bailey Jr.
It's actually the O is long, Hogberg, and however you may feel free to call me David.
Okay, David. Well, thank you for coming on the program. I'm Hutch Bailey Jr. Let me introduce my co-host. We have Stacy Rush from Atlanta.
Mm-hmm. Good evening, and I will call you David. Welcome to the show. We're glad to have you.
Well, thank you for having me.
And Sal in Western Pennsylvania.
Thank you, Dr. David, for joining us.
You are welcome.
All right. Well, we have an election coming up, and we imagine that healthcare is going to be one of the major issues talked about. We were just talking before you came on, remembering Barack Obama's infamous, if you like your doctor, you can keep your doctor promise, or the reality that keeping the health plan or doctor you liked was never actually guaranteed under Obamacare. Tell us a little something about your book and what's making you tick right now, sir.
Well, let me. Since you started off with President Obama's promise on doctors, let me start with that because I think that's a little more relevant for your listeners right now. It's called the Lower Healthcare Costs Act. It is a bill that's currently before the Senate, and in some ways, it's a repeat of Obamacare. If it becomes law, it will result in patients losing their doctors in the sense that doctors they'll find that increasingly that their doctors are not covered by their health plans. And what this bill purports to do is protect patients from unexpected medical bills that can result when they receive emergency care that is out of network, that is out of the network of their insurance company. And however, to do this, the bill imposes a price control on insurers. It forces them to pay the median price that they pay for a service. So let's say you end up in the hospital and your physician comes by to check on you. If that physician visit is not covered by your insurer, if it's out of network, then the insurer will pay the median price to that physician that it pays to all physicians in its network for that type of a visit. And when you think about it a little bit, you realize it gives two perverse incentives to insurers to get rid of their more of their higher priced providers. First, by eliminating higher priced doctors from their networks, then the median price they pay for doctor services drops. And second, by eliminating those higher priced doctors from their networks, well, those doctors then become out of network. So a patient goes to see one of those doctors, and the insurer now only has to pay the lower median price and not the higher price that it was paying that doctor when the doctor was in network. And basically, if that happens, patients are going to find that their doctors won't be covered under their insurance plans, and it's Obamacare 2.0. I'll just give the politicians who are pushing this the slightest bit of credit, in that at least this time they're not saying that if you like your doctor, you can keep your doctor.
Well, and David, that brings up a question for me then as well. And just so you know, I actually head up a division that assists my clients with health insurance. So I run into this all the time and use every opportunity I have to explain to them, why their networks are changing. For example, here in Georgia, if you are in the individual market, which is just a complete mess, we only have HMOs as the options. There are no more PPOs within the state of Georgia if you're in the individual market. So they are cutting physician networks. They have no out of network benefits, and it's a manner in which the carriers are controlling their cost. But my question to you is, I love the names that they come up with these bills because they sound so great. The Affordable Care Act and the new act that they're proposing. So who's writing these? I mean, do you think that our representatives in DC have a clue, or do they think that they're actually doing something good for the end consumer?
Oh, I think I think it's probably the latter. I mean, the two people that are pushing this are Senator Lamar Alexander from Tennessee, a Republican, and Senator Patty Murray from Washington, Democrat. With regard to Lamar Alexander, he's kind of this old school Republican. I believe he was a cabinet secretary under the first president in the administration of the first President Bush. And he's one of these guys who thinks that if something's bipartisan, it must be a good idea. And, this is something that insurers are actually pushing because it would save them costs. And, doctors and hospitals are not particularly thrilled with it. And however, he's also one of those Republicans that if, big business is in favor of something, then, it must be free market. He's never really learned that if businesses, businesses are big businesses more than happy to use the government to tilt the playing field in its favor when it can. So they may think they're doing something good, but and another thing is, it's usually the staffer, maybe in cooperation with lobbyists, that come up with these bills. Senator Alexander may not even know what's in the details in this thing, which wouldn't surprise me. So, they may be well intentioned, but it's very easy to lose your patience with so-called well intentioned politicians.
Well, David, what I've been hearing is, we want to lower prescription costs. We want to lower prescription costs. Tell us what this bill would do for that. And when you talk about big business, that is one of the biggest business involved in healthcare.
Yeah, I'm not sure what this bill actually does for prescription drugs. I'm not entirely certain that it does much of anything at all, although I could be wrong on that. Let me just kind of make it a more general comment here that, we all want lower healthcare costs, but we aren't willing to sort of remove a lot of the government rules and regulations that drive up the cost of healthcare. One of the biggest ones is the tax exclusion you get for health insurance if you get your health insurance through your employer. This encourages people to put more and more of their benefits, their their compensation into health insurance rather than income, because every extra dollar of health insurance is tax free, as to where income is taxed at whatever your marginal rate is. And what ends up happening is that people tend to buy more expensive health insurance plans than they otherwise would. They come with a lot of bells and whistles, which means that a lot of costs that we should be paying directly out of our own pocket, which would make the market more efficient, which would drive down costs and improve quality. We expect insurance companies to pay for them, and finding a way to slowly wean us off of that employer-based tax exclusion is something that politicians should be focusing on. But it's there just doesn't seem to be enough foresight in Washington to do anything about it.
Okay, and one more follow-up question. To me, one of the other big costs is tort reform and malpractice insurance. Any traction on that? Anything on that?
Nothing that I've seen lately. I mean, it would certainly help. I don't think it's one of the biggest drivers of our healthcare costs, but it's certainly one. In states that have pursued it, like Texas, they have seen drops in the premiums for malpractice insurance, and presumably that translates into when doctors and hospitals have to pay less for malpractice insurance, presumably they pass some of that cost on to patients. And but right now, I don't really see any push for that on the national level, and it's always very tough on the national level because the trial lawyers is a very, very powerful lobby, especially among the Democratic Party. So. Right now, I don't see any prospects for that on the national level.
Ladies and gentlemen, Dr. David Hogberg was Senior Fellow for Healthcare Policy at the National Center for Public Policy Research. He has previously worked for Investors Business Daily, the Office of Representative Jeff Fortenberry, the Capital Research Center, and the Public Interest Institute. He has a BA from CSU Sacramento, an MA from the University of Missouri-Columbia, and a PhD from the University of Iowa, all in political science. My father did too. Doctor, I'd like to ask you something. You mentioned something that I've been saying for years, really. I remember growing up when everything wasn't covered. In other words, we don't have health insurance anymore. We have health plans. Health insurance should be no different than car insurance, in my opinion. It should be there to protect you from ruin if you have some catastrophic medical condition that runs, into a high dollar situation. Why can't it be $300 for a broken arm? Or some such. You know what I mean? It's something that I agree with. Oh, yeah.
Again, it's due to the tax exclusion if you get your health insurance through your employer. I mean, as a friend of mine once described it, and others have described it this way, is that we don't really have health insurance. What we have is kind of prepaid health care. That is, you buy your insurance and you expect it to pay for all of your small health care costs. I mean, I think, for example, primary care. I think most of that primary care probably is in the range of $50 to $200. You visit your primary care physician, you should probably pay probably all of that out of pocket. It would be far more efficient. Prices would go down, quality would go up. Primary care doctors wouldn't have to worry about billing costs and all the coding and all that other very costly nonsense that goes along with having to get reimbursed by insurance companies and Medicare and Medicaid and so on. Some people say, well, that's $50, $200. And I say, well, what do we spend on a phone bill, on your cell phone bill every month? Or what do you spend on cable? You have to go into the doctor maybe once or twice. Most people maybe see the doctor once or twice a year, if that. I mean, it's really, you're really, and presumably seeing the doctor is a little bit more important on the grand scheme of things than, your cable bill. So, it's not in any way an outrageous expense. And, we should be paying for a lot more health care.
Agreed.
Directly.
I mean, when your starter goes out in your vehicle, you don't try to call the insurance company. I mean, it's just something that you have to do.
Or you need new tires or an oil change or any of that stuff. You want to add something onto your house. Your fire insurance doesn't pay for that. It pays for when the fire burns part of your house. I mean,
absolutely. Now this is kind of a political show, so I will say Lamar Alexander. I can't wait to see his next job because he's retiring after this term, and I'm going to guess that he's going to be in some medical lobby of some such. Maybe not even maybe a no-show like a lot of them. But the last time when Obamacare was being sold, one of the most disgusting things that I saw was AARP was pushing for it because they had a supplemental insurance plan that would bridge the gap between Obamacare and everything else. Do you think that there's any kind of quote-unquote collusion going on with in the medical industry with this bill?
That's really a good question, and to be honest, I don't know. It sounds to me though that like when you're talking about collusion, you're talking about people taking care or special interest groups taking care of their own interests, their own pockets, and that is always going to be the case with most bills that come up before Congress. It benefits some group and oftentimes at the expense of some other group, and that certainly at least one side's going to be taking care of their own, and that's kind of human nature. And which is why the free market works so much better. You can't satisfy your self-interest without trying to please my self-interest. You give me a product or service, and I give you money, and so forth. And that's really why we should have far less government involvement in all things, but especially in healthcare, because there are only a few other areas where we have more government involvement in healthcare, and it's not a surprise that the price of healthcare and health insurance continues to rise, has continued to rise over decades as we see more and more government involvement in it.
Yeah, I think you will get 100% agreement with everyone on this show that we definitely need less government involved with our health care. And you wrote a book, Medicare Victims, How the U.S. Government's Largest Healthcare Program Harms Patients and Impairs Physicians. And while I have my opinions on how this has occurred, can you give our listeners a little background on your book and what you were getting across with Medicare and kind of the Medicare war that's upon us?
Yeah, I mean, I think the book is relevant today simply because the political left and Democrats are now pushing Medicare for all. And instead of saying nationalized health care or single payer system, which tends to be, kind of a non-starter for a lot of people, they're pushing Medicare. And I got to give them some credit, at least for their rhetoric, and that it can be effective, and that Medicare is a pretty popular program. But that was something that was always interesting, that really interested me, over a decade ago. Why was Medicare a pretty popular program? And as I dug into it, basically what I found is that, one of the main constituencies that Medicare serves, the 65 and older population, well, people age 65 to 74, that group votes at rates higher than almost any other group, which basically means, in our system, that means a lot of political power. And you can bet that politicians are going to make sure that Medicare pleases, satisfies as many seniors as possible, because, politicians don't want, a large group of voters showing up on election day and casting ballots for their opponents because they're mad about Medicare. But what I also found is that groups that do not have that kind of political power under Medicare often lose out. And for example, the disabled who are can get access to Medicare, but they have to endure a 2-year wait period before they can go on Medicare. And, some of them are, more than a few of them are uninsured during that period. They can, if you're disabled, you're probably pretty sick, and, they can incur very large medical bills that are not covered. Now, why is that the case? Well, that 2-year waiting period has been there since they put the disabled on Medicare in the early 70s. Why has it never been even, at least shortened by, say, even 6 months? Well, the disabled don't vote at anywhere near the rates that seniors do. And the other thing is that, there are something like 100 different programs under the federal government that serve disabled people. And so disabled groups that lobby on behalf of the disabled, their efforts are kind of scattered. They're unfocused, as opposed to seniors who have, really only 2 main programs they're concerned about at the federal level, Social Security and Medicare, which makes it a lot easier for groups like the AARP and others that lobby on behalf of seniors to focus their efforts. So, I guess the warning I would give is that, don't expect, if you're not a senior age 65 to 74, don't expect to get great coverage under Medicare for all, because you probably don't have anywhere near the political power as seniors do. Wow,
that's horrible. I mean, and that. Well, I mean, and that group go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, I would just say, look at up north in Canada or across the pond in Britain. Look at the number of people who are very sick, heart disease, cancer, they need a hip replacement or whatever else, and they have to endure a waiting period of months, sometimes years for treatment. And these are the people who are obviously in the most need of the healthcare system. why have those waiting times endured for decades now?
Right.
Why is nothing ever done about it? Well, I mean, number one, the number of people who get that sick each year is a very small number, not really enough to count at the ballot box. And they're not going to be doing the sorts of things that can otherwise bring about change in the political system, such as organizing, protesting, and so forth. I mean, they're very sick. They have got a million other things to concern themselves with, and getting organized politically is not probably not even on the list.
Right.
So you can just take a look at those countries to see what happens when you nationalize a healthcare system. The resources do not go toward the politically power, or do not go toward groups that lack political power, and oftentimes the sickest groups are the ones that lack the most power.
Yeah, well,
or have the least amount of power, I should say.
Finally, Dr. Hogberg, talk about Part D's donut hole, or patients that are harmed because they have too much or not enough treatment.
Yeah, this was actually the one portion of Obamacare that I actually agreed with, which was that it went a long way to filling in the donut hole in Medicare. And Medicare's in the prescription drug benefit Part D, Medicare Part D had this very weird design where people would get a lot of their costs of the drugs they paid. The first couple hundred, or maybe it was $1,000 drugs they paid. Most of that was covered, and then there was a big gap in the middle where seniors had to pay. After that first, I think it was $1,000. They had to pay, I want to say, the next $1,000 or $2,000 out of pocket. I don't remember the exact numbers off the top of my head. And then once they got through that gap, then Medicare would cover 95% of the costs after that second threshold. This was called the donut hole, the gap in the middle. It was a very weird design, but again, it was something that you could explain via political power. I actually talked to, after he'd left the House of Representatives, Speaker Dennis Hastert, who was Speaker of the House when this bill was passed, and I was kind of asking him why didn't you, say, put a big deductible up front, like of $300, $400, have people pay that up front, and so that the coverage could grow more as you needed more drugs, i.e. the people who were likely to be sicker, right, tends to be the ones that have bigger prescription costs. And he basically said, well, we just didn't think we could get seniors interested in it unless, some of their very first dollars of costs were covered by Medicare. In other words, it was kind of it was a calculation of political power. How do we get enough seniors to support this bill? And, that's by, giving them first dollar coverage. But at the same time, how can we keep the cost down? And you had this gap in the middle. And why was that effective? Well, only maybe, I think I calculated somewhere around 15% of seniors every year would ever even fall into the donut hole. So, it was a small percentage of seniors, probably not, enough to amount to very much politically. And, that's why the Medicare Part D was designed with a donut hole.
Well, Dr. David Hogberg, thank you very much for coming on to Cold War Radio this evening. If you could tell everybody where they can get your book and how they can get in touch with you, we hope to have you back sometime. I love talking about, I know my audience is very interested in this subject.
Well, I appreciate it, and thank you for having me on, and I'd love to come back. My book, as far as I know, is still on Amazon. It's through Amazon's program where you buy the book and they print it out. We did it that way. And you can basically follow me on Twitter. My Twitter handle is @doc, DOC_Hog, H-O-G. I put a lot of politics and healthcare stuff on there, among other things. So that's the best way to follow me and get in touch with me.
Outstanding. Well, again, I hope you come back, and thanks for joining the program tonight.
Well, thank you for having me.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, another informative bout. Good stuff, man. Good stuff. I went a little bit long, but hey, could have went longer than that, Stacy. You know what I mean? All right.
Yeah, I think it could. When you are passionate about a particular issue and in a field, I think he could have talked to us all day about the issues within, whether it's Medicare or the healthcare system in general. There are so many to be addressed.
Yeah, the only problem is that the information I got had a different Twitter handle, and now he says that he tweets about politics. I'm gonna have to play that back. I put the wrong Twitter handle on the show tweet and everything. Oh well, that's no big deal. So good questions, guys. Not my forte, medical, but I know there's not a whole lot of millennials listen to this program, so a lot of our listeners are very interested in these kind of in this subject, as I am. For sure. I got something today from the VA. I got a newsletter. And right on the front of it, this is how disconnected our government is. Right on the front of this, it said gun safety tips. And I'm thinking, do you know who in the hell you're sending this mail to? Veterans. I mean, you don't need to send gun safety tips to veterans. Just a little personal thing there, ladies and gentlemen. As you said before, Stacy, Project Veritas has got a new expose out, and they've got a guy out that if this doesn't change the Federal Trade Commission's mind and everybody else's, maybe, I don't know, the FCC's mind, these people are enemies of the United States of America and should be brought to their knees.
When you sat down with me last time on the story that we released on June 24th, you were disguised. You were in the shadows. Right now, there's no disguise.
I felt that our entire election system was going to be compromised forever by this company that told the American public that it was not going to do any evil. This is the best thing that I can do in the situation that I'm currently at. And the thing is that the American public needs to understand what's happening. I'm going to, publish this information so that other people can see the system that Google has built in order to control the entire information landscape. This is something that once people see, it's going to bring, it doesn't matter whether you're left or whether you're right. When you see this, both sides are going to agree that this is wrong. So my message to those that are on the fence is I've released the documents. They can go and they can see everything that Google is doing. And then they can see the scale of it. Because I think that there's a lot of engineers that have a hint that things are wrong, but they don't understand the colossal scale that it's at. And so for those people, I say, look at the documents. Like take the pulse of Americans, see what's happening. And come and tell the world, what you already know to be true. And I know that people have been waiting for, this Google Snowden moment where somebody comes out and explains what everybody already knows to be true. And I'm hoping that those that want to do something are going to be compelled to act, and that we together can come together and defend ourselves in the case of litigation. They can stop like one or two of us, but they can't stop all of us coming out and explaining to the American public that this is what's happening, that Google is not who they say they are. You're going to be a hero. It's going to be fine. Clear your conscience. You'll be able to live with that for the rest of your life, that you did the right thing.
It's conscience, man. Conscience.
I know. Do you know that? That's
Stacy,
so funny that you say that, because I got stuck on that very thing when he said that. And I am not kidding. I listened to it at work earlier today, and I was like, what?
I'm listening to this man bun wearing dude, and I'm thinking, me, I like chainsaws and shotguns and pickup. I'm listening to this guy. These people are running the damn world, Stacy.
I know, and that is the scariest thing that we have going on. But even, scarier is that he's probably one of the few who's willing to give up a $260,000 salary and come out the way that he did. It takes a lot of conscience to do something like that, and because not many people are willing to put themselves out there, and I heard him say, people would be outraged if they all saw what was going on. Part of me wonders, would they be?
Yeah. Sal, your thoughts?
Stacy took the word out of my mouth, conscious, but also, this is also, it's in the same lines as morals. What's right is right, and what is wrong is wrong. And we are seeing people who are brave enough to be calling, for lack of a better term, the man out.
Yeah.
And their rulers out. So it takes a lot of morals to do that, because you're probably being told you're doing the wrong thing. Don't you dare do this.
And it's a generational thing too. I'm going to give you an example. When I was a buck sergeant in the this would have been in the late 80s. When I was in E5, 85, 86, something like that, might have been 87. I was E6 by then, but I was in my local. I lived in a not a gated community, but I lived in a community around a lake in very rural Lebanon County, Pennsylvania. And we had a fire company that had a little bar that was open on the weekends, and then it ended up being open every day. But there was a retired Army guy in there that had half a load on, and he was just smoking our current Army of the 1980s. And I thought, this guy's nuts. And, now I'm him, and I feel the same way. So maybe I'm a little too harsh on this guy, but he is doing the right thing, and that's the important part, the moral thing. So God bless him for that, and I hope he stays safe, because these people are kowtowing to the PLA, to the People's Liberation Army of Red China. This is some important stuff right now, and I'm not going to get to the story probably, but I might. But the Federal Trade Commission is starting to think about breaking these things up. And I think they should, man. I do. And I'm a small government person, but when you look at the power they wield, they need to get nuked, Stacy. I mean, we got to do something legislatively this time, which I'm rarely going.
I'm with you. I'm very, very much, small government. The less they're involved, the better. But when they are out there saying that they're a platform only, they're not.
No.
And they should be treated as such. And they are too big. I mean, you look at what's happening with Project Veritas. The last time they brought out a story against Google, then YouTube, took down the videos. I mean, they're an extremely powerful group that has the ability to control a lot of information flow. And I think that something's got to change in this situation. It's something I can get behind.
Yeah, me too. The Duke of California, ladies and gentlemen. Sean, what's on your mind? What do you think?
Oh, I think you guys are right on the money on this. China, it's super bad. Speaking of China, this is a little interesting article that I crafted myself in a way, because I get emails on my favorite hobby in the world, model trains and stuff. And I customize these things all the time with LEDs and everything. And so what China does is they have 95% of our manufacturing capabilities for all of these model trains that I, again, customize with all these LEDs and sound and stuff, privately, of course. Sometimes I do take a commission on here and there. And again, 95% of them are made in China, and it's really bad. So with what's going on in China, we recently got a notification in the community, I'll say that, the community of model train enthusiasts, that the tariffs are going to start affecting us in a big way, and that's completely understandable. I'm 100% on board with the tariffs, against China. Hooray! But again, that's also a double-edged sword in our case, because that makes things on our end more costly. And then there's small discussions about this stuff once in a while about, well, why don't we just bring all the manufacturing capabilities back to the U.S.? And they say, oh, but the labor costs, it's going to cost too much. It's just going to make it more expensive. to make it here. And it's like, are you stupid? It's no. If we're having a trade war, which we've already been having for a long time with China, we're going to make a lot more of these things here, but it will hurt a little while, but we can make more of them to where it will cost less eventually. You just got to be patient.
Sean, eventually that is a possibility that could happen, but unfortunately we, somewhat to your point, is we are so dependent on China right now because they can do everything. They can do everything. So we're very dependent on them. And then when you become dependent on them and their costs are just so low, here in America, what is the incentive for someone who has a large sum of money to set up a manufacturing plant? It takes a lot of just physical space to do that. It takes a manufacturing process. It takes machinery. It takes know-how.
And what's the most important thing it takes? Energy.
Yes, and also, you have that other thing that in some states works very much against this, and those are the unions. And when you involve them, then that's a whole nother thing. So, Sean, I would personally love to see more manufacturing come here, but we're a slave to China. We are slaves.
Yeah, and that's really the sucky part because, well, you know what? I'm going to throw in some good news on this. There are some manufacturing plants, but they're very, very small. They're like family-owned little shops.
Well, they're coming back, though.
They're coming back, and that's the good part. A lot of them, like this one big retailer that I buy all my tools for, the stuff that I do, is bringing all those tools and capabilities back to the U.S. And I'm like, yes! Because most of those tools I need.
Let me ask you a question, Sean.
Yeah.
Lionel or MTH?
I actually don't do Lionel or MTH. I have a lot of HO scale stuff. That's
HO, okay.
1/8 scale.
I got a ton of stuff, a ton of O scale stuff from MTH, and that's a Korean company, but man, they're good.
Lionel actually is still in the United States, believe it or not. After all the years of them having to say, should we go to the Chinese now? Nope, they're still here. They're still making them here.
That's true. All right, Sean, thanks for calling. I got to go, brother.
All right, thanks, people.
All right, yep, hang in there.
Peace.
All right, so let's move on here. I'm going to get a little bit more serious. This is something that's really starting to disturb me. We've had another leftist terrorist attack. The FBI is investigating a shooting at the San Antonio ICE offices as a political attack. So maybe, although I don't have much faith in the FBI, they can always reclaim that. I think they need to do it pretty soon. Stacy, I got to tell you, I remember back. I'm starting to get the Jeff Sessions feeling again. I'm not totally there yet, but the way, I don't know if the Department of Justice or maybe even the president doesn't really, I think the president knows because of the rallies. I think he knows that the good people of the United States of America, and not just Republicans, are starving for justice. I mean, when you saw what happened with the white Hispanic in Florida and in Ferguson with, little Mikey Brown got murdered, you saw the Obama DOJ there the next freaking day. Why does this Justice Department move so slow? Are they not paying attention to this is AOC all day long? Concentration camps. And you got weak-minded people out there that are grabbing onto that and thinking it's true. And there's a multi-story building with ICE offices on one floor, and all the shots went through that floor's windows. This is crazy.
Yeah, I think it is crazy. I think that it's not going to get any better anytime in the near future. I think it's not just going to be ICE that's going to be targeted. And I think if Trump wins in 2020, we'll likely see things escalate even further. I will say, though, and I'm only saying this because I don't know this for sure, Hutch, but part of me wonders if it's less of the Justice Department moving slowly on this or more that the media doesn't cover it. So do we not know that they likely are there involved with this, but the media, I would imagine, as they just don't see that, targeting ICE as an issue because quite honestly, I think they're in the AOC camp.
Yeah, I think you're right. Sal, let me turn to you with your legal expertise and ask you, Stacy brings up the media. Do you think that there is ever going to be a line that the media crosses that gets them prosecuted? I mean, and I've been analyzing this stuff for a long time, and the media, in my opinion, is criminally complicit in a lot of this stuff. I mean,
there's a lot of things that you can say, Hutch. And let's just use this example. Can you yell fire in a movie theater? No, you can't. You're going to cause mayhem and trouble. But some of these other things they're saying, do they rise to that level, Hutch?
Well, I looked at ABC when ABC News altered the photographic evidence of the white Hispanic's wound on his head and showed that it just looked like there was no wound. And then I saw an HD photo of the guy's head, and his skull was almost cracked in the back. I mean, to me, and that's just one. I mean, they've done this over and over. They knew the truth, and they reported a lie. And violence occurred because of that. Is that something that we should allow to happen with impunity?
Well, I don't think we should allow it to happen, but I think that we should all be aware that we really need to very carefully analyze exactly what the news is and what they're saying, and pretty much don't believe any of it. And I'm going to even go as far as saying any network, including any network, and I mean Fox News as well.
I watched Fox News tonight. Brett Baer, my favorite anchor. And he looked genuinely giddy when he was talking about the loss in the stock market. He sounded like he was happy of what went on today financially in the markets. And that broke me, man. I'm like, why are you so excited? It's an attitudinal thing. Nothing has happened in the economy to make everything go south. We have unemployment at the lowest rates ever. Manufacturing's up. Energy costs are down. It's ridiculous to me that these people get away with the stuff they do. And I will say, Fox is the best out of them.
Yeah,
but
Hutch. Again, you have
white supremacist, a white supremacist president.
Yeah. Well, anybody can say something until they say it enough till they want you to believe it. But again, this is where we all have to be wise consumer of this, all the media that's bombarding us 24/7, because it's a 24/7 news cycle. Really take a look at it and see what the sources are and really check it out. Is this going to rise to a level where someone is likely going to be prosecuted for it? They should have been 2 years ago, or at least a little bit ago. For all the lies that have been
Sal,
out.
the media, the media facilitated us electing a communist president.
They have immunity from just about. I don't want to say actual immunity, Hutch.
I know,
and Stacy, but they have immunity, and as you both know, you can take a very innocent story and twist it to where, he's a racist, he's a white nationalist. You can twist a story so much that you can just take it out of context. And I think that's what we're seeing here. We're seeing the context of stories just being removed and their narrative put in, so then the context is twisted. And again, we have to be very wise consumers of the media and what's out there.
And I think we have to be wise consumers of new media. And supporting new media, whether it's a One American News or Newsmax TV or what have you,
Cold War
if
Radio,
it's more right, Cold War Radio, Levin TV or what have you, because there's got to be some sort of competition in the marketplace, and I think that's the only way that these networks try and straighten up their deal. The freedom of the press is so important for the citizen, but we don't have that now, and that's the problem. And so I'd rather see these organizations and news organizations expand and still have that protection for news organizations, and then have people be educated enough, as Sal mentions, to be consumers of those, so that maybe it drives people back in the big three networks, back to where things used to be, at least to the point where it was harder to tell that they weren't political activists.
Right, and that's the way it was.
Yeah, and it was, because they were left-leaning, but you didn't know it back in Walter Cronkite's days,
Yeah, well, hey, even back a little bit further. Well, not Walter Cronkite days. So even back more recently, what was one of the taglines of CNN? The most trusted news source.
Yeah,
right.
Remember that?
Boy, did they ruin that? And they did it. It was such a miracle that they did it, and they weren't in New York. They were in Atlanta. It was one of the best things that ever happened, and they blew it, man. They gave it away. What a shame. Jane Fonda should have never been involved in that. But I gotta
women
say,
ruin everything.
No, it was Ted. Ted was the main guy. But
but sort of one last point I want to make, on this media thing that we're talking about is, we don't get a lot of facts and a lot of information. We get a lot of narrative and we get a lot of commentary. Very rarely do we get the real facts. We get a lot of commentary and narrative, and it's put in a context where it's to make you to believe something. Whatever that something is, that's where you have to that's not where you have to discern the facts and figure it out for yourself.
No, that's right. And I'm trying to find this article so I can tell people about it. But it seems that I'm not going to be able to find it, and that's all right. But the New York Times has totally devolved into all of their coverage becoming editorial. I mean, it's sad. And I guess what I'm trying to say is I think there should be a point. There should be to use a leftist term, a trigger where the constitutionally protected media, if they cross this line, they are no longer constitutionally protected. And what I mean by that is not if they make a mistake, but if you can find that they willingly, knowingly, and maliciously changed a story to cause something to happen, they ought to get called out on it, and they ought to be punished for it. I mean, if a ham radio operator says something wrong, he gets fined or jailed. The FCC is all over it. Why aren't they all over Don Lemon or Chris Cuomo? These people they're shouting things to their audiences that are untrue, and it's just
untrue, causing such division and causing violence, as you mentioned. With the ICE office being shot up. I mean, they are very responsible for what's going on. And when I saw Chris Cuomo, freaking out after being called Fredo, I thought, oh, poor little thing. Can you imagine what it's like being a Trump supporter or working in this administration? This is what you created. You created this. When you are not condemning, and the Democrat Party is not condemning Steve Scalise almost being killed and those Republicans being targeted, they are inciting this violence and they are complicit with it. but they will never be held accountable. That is never going to change.
That's a shame. I'll tell you. You know, if you ask Siri how old Chris Cuomo is,
old is Chris Cuomo?
Fredo Cuomo is 49 years old.
You know, but one last,
you said it was one last. You said it was one last thing the last time. Go ahead.
I just sort of want to wrap this up.
Okay.
You know, when you're talking about legal things, you're talking about libel and slander, but as far as getting into causing harm by news, again I go back to knowing the facts. But as far as libeling or slandering someone, hey, that's where the teeth come in, and that's where the law comes in.
Right.
So,
all right. Marlene, we're going to get to you next. I want you to listen to this in exclusive footage captured by Matt Purdie of Breitbart News. Protesters with Never Again Action, Miramar Circle of Protection, Friends of Miami-Dade detainees, Food Not Bombs, Fort Lauderdale, Students Working for Equal Rights, and the Black Lives Matter Alliance of Broward County shouted threats at workers and former employees of the GEO Group, a private contractor used by ICE for facility and detention space. Listen to this. And really, if you go to steelcityresistance.com, in the video page, the video is even better than the audio.
We know where all your children live. You have kids in you have kids in we know everything about you. No GEO! No KKK! No fascist USA!
The central thing that we mourn on Tisha B'Av is called Sinat Chinam. And that means faceless hatred. We mourn the Sinat Chinam of GEO and everything that it stands for as part of the deportation machine. We are here to make noise. We are here to say, never again. Never again. Never again. Never again. Never again. Never again. The connection to our lovely GEO group is that they operate the Broward Transitional Center. The Broward Transitional Center is where the innocent homestead children get taken when they age out. And for their 18th birthday, they give them the great gift of shackles.
Get out.
And they get taken to Broward Transitional Center. Shame on you, GEO! Shame on you!
Pathetic.
These are politically motivated attacks. We have been a services provider to the federal government for over 30 years. The fact is that the services we provide in our facilities today are in no way different than the high-quality professional services under the same standards that we provided for 8 years under President Obama's administration. So where was the outrage then?
When immigrant bodies are under attack, what do we do? When immigrant bodies are under attack, what do you do? Abolish what? Abolish what? Abolish what?
We've seen a pattern of politically motivated attacks against private sector companies, and that includes attacks on banks and financial institutions that support private sector companies that provide services to ICE. This is an effort to attack private sector companies to impact public policy by bypassing the policy-making and political process. Well, this protest is part of a broad, dishonest movement that is based on politically motivated attacks and outright lies about the services that our company provides. And unfortunately, these lies have led to the endangerment of our employees, government employees, and the public.
David Venturella!
We know where your children live.
John Bolfin, you have kids in you have kids in We know everything about you, and you won't just be seeing us here.
We know where you sleep at night. We know what kind of dog food you buy your dogs.
We're not actually joking. John Bolford, you go to church and you live on road. We're not joking.
It's incredibly reckless. The safety of our employees is our top priority, and we will do whatever it takes to ensure that their safety and their security remains our top priority.
Now, the good news is that was less than 40 people, and these are the women that, they don't shave their legs, they don't shave under their arms, there were no bras present. These are not the beautiful people, but still, you could hear the vitriol in their voice, Marlene. I mean, you could hear they're calling out employees' children and where they go to school. I mean, where they walk their dogs, if you could understand it. It was hard. It's hard to understand when they're shrieking like this. But these people are clearly egged on by the likes of the squad, man. It's absolutely something that we have to nip in the bud. Your opinion?
I think those ladies are brainwashed. I do. The way they were screaming and yelling, it sounds like they're just a bunch of brainwashed people that are wannabe old 60s protesters.
That's
and
what they look
young
like.
Kids.
That's what they look like.
I don't doubt it. I bet they do.
Probably paid, though. Probably not just out there
of course.
on the grassroots.
Maybe we can go back. Maybe we can go back in the '60s and get the electric shock machine warmed up.
That's true. Sure,
I know.
not?
My county has one of those. I forget what it's called now. They got one of those sound machines that'll break your eardrums. I know we got that. I saw it at the G20. But Ken, what do you think about this? Ken from King George.
Hey, Ken.
I agree with Marlene. I mean, if you look at it, they all come up with a hey ho ho, whatever the crisis is that's made up in their mind of the day. I mean, I can make up one too. I think I threw it in the chat.
That was a good one,
Dylan. So you don't want out the explicit tag. Well, if you want to go see it, you got to check out the chat. But yeah, it's just crazy. I mean, you look at the Occupy Wall Street thing. These people show up in mobs, and they had to set up rape tents, and everything else up there in New York for that stuff.
Sal knows about that. Sal had to intimately deal with our Occupy Pittsburgh for a while there. I remember him talking to him about that.
That was just downright disgusting. There were rats, there were diseases, there were feces, there were mud, there was taking over private property. It was just downright disgusting. And I believe our city council, or they're not my city council anymore. Thank God for that. But the city council, didn't they give them like a little hey ho ho?
Oh yeah, they were all behind it.
Go.
Oh yeah,
they were.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
right in downtown Pittsburgh, and downtown Pittsburgh's not very big, and that's also compounded by the topography. It meets at a triangle, so a lot of it is really narrow. It was a real eyesore, man. I mean, they destroyed a really nice grass open area. It killed all the grass. It probably grew back by now at the company's expense. But Marlene, what'd you think about our medical guest or our healthcare system guest? And should we do more of that?
That was a great interview, and I mentioned so in the chat room. I think we should, because as he was talking, I thought, Oregon, we don't have the option that I think some of the Midwest states, but I'm not 100%, had the option for, I guess, Trump care or some kind of an alternative to Obamacare. Whatever that is, we don't have that out here in Oregon.
And apparently they don't in Georgia either. I mean, Stacy talked about the different plans that they don't have. And ladies and gentlemen, I want to say good evening to Stacy. Stacy has to go. Stacy, how can people get in touch with you?
Well, thanks for having me on tonight. And you guys can most easily reach me on Twitter. I'm at DiscoveringMe40, or you can look up America First Stacy, and I will be with you guys again next Wednesday. Everyone have a blessed week.
You too, Stacy. Thanks for coming on.
Thank you.
I'm glad
absolute,
to take the extra half hour, Stacy.
Absolute favorite, one of my favorite co-hosts. She's been with me a long time. The only person has been, well, now it's getting a little different now, because now Sal's here. So this is Sal and Ward have been with me for many years, and we're at the point right now that the only people that I've never met on the staff are Rocky and Jack. I know everybody else. Sal's been to my house. I know Ward. I know Stacy, eating dinner with Stacy. I know Mona. You know, so it's getting to be a tight team. I like this. I like it a lot.
You'll be getting an invite to my house, hopefully, once I get everything done. So,
All right.
So I'll shoot you a little date there, Hutch.
All right. Ken, what do you think about the medical follow? Because it's not really one of my biggest areas that I follow, but I understood that it was important. So wanted to bring them on.
It is very important, because when I first got out of the Navy, my first job was with Raytheon, and I was a single guy, didn't give one iota about going to see a doctor, you know, but because I worked as a government contractor, I was required by our contract to have health insurance, and Raytheon took care of that. You know, they took a little bit of, you know, a little snippet out of your paycheck, and, you know, I never really paid attention to it before. But, you know, now when you used to get actual paychecks with pay stubs, and you saw those numbers and what they're taking out for this and taking out for that, you know, now with the invention of direct deposit, people just, hey, there's money in my checking account. Let's go to Burger King, you know.
Right.
But you know, if you actually sat down and looked at your pay stub, I mean, after I never went to the doctor. Hated going to the doctor.
Yeah, me too.
Even when I sliced open my knee when I was still kind of active duty. Actually, no, I think I had just gotten out. But one of my buddies, when he made chief, there was another, you know, corpsman chief, or the guy that made chief at the same time. Jeff was like, man, you got to go out and see Doc. I'm like, all right. And I sliced this thing open pretty good. It was, you know, sheet metal, you know, I didn't feel a thing, but it was bleeding like crazy.
So it was pretty sharp, you're saying?
Oh, yeah. So he went out there, you know, he cleaned everything up, put a gauze bandage on it, and he was like, man, you got to go see the doctor. And I'm like, man, no, I don't want to go see the damn doctor. So we sat in the emergency room for almost 4 hours so they could go in and basically inject it with the saline, you know, flush, and put 4 staples in it. I was like, that's what you're going to do? You know, and it actually hurt worse when they injected that saline shit in there than when I actually sliced it open. So, but anyways, that was like the only time I ever used my insurance the entire time, you know. So then I ended up getting a job down here a lot closer to the house. And then I got married, and my wife said, oh, you got to go to see the doctor, blah, blah, you know. So now I go once every 6 months because they determined I got this high blood pressure. In order for them to refill my prescription, you got to, and they're constantly looking to dole out, you know, pills, you know, that better living through chemistry thing. And I'm like, I hate taking pills. I mean, even when I was a young kid, you know, if I had a headache, okay, go sleep it off, you know. But I hated even taking.
Yeah, it is a big bureaucracy. It is, and I have a really big subject that I have to cover before the show's over. Let me just say that on Friday night we have Doug Giles. He's the founder and editor of ClashDaily.com, and his subject is going to be: would Jesus vote for Trump. So that's going to be interesting. I know some people will be interested in the audience. I'm interested to see how that's going to go. But let me get your final thoughts, Ken, and then Marlene, I'm going to ask you the same, and then I'm going to talk about Hong Kong. Go ahead, Ken.
Oh yeah, this whole issue of Hong Kong. I mean, I think we mentioned it on Monday, but it looks like Tiananmen Square, 2.0. But this time, the first time it happened, you didn't have the internet, but they still have the capability to control what's seen in China via this whole Google debacle. So if, video comes out, they can make that disappear overnight. Or, just shut down the power grid. Who's going to video anything? If
That's right. No doubt.
It's definitely a serious issue that we need to address, and people just don't quite understand it. And like you mentioned earlier with them building islands in the South China Sea, and we did nothing about it. I mean, we did sail a couple of DDGs, through there in the last couple of months, which shows that you can do whatever you want, but we're still going to sail the 7 seas and keep shipping lanes open for free commerce. So,
yep, no doubt. Marlene, your thoughts?
Well, let's see, where was I? Oh, yeah.
I'm trying not to go over 10 o'clock tonight. I'm not trying to be pushy.
I know. Ken likes to talk. That's okay.
We all like to talk. That's why we're here.
You aren't I know. That's right.
Especially me.
No, I know you do.
Blame it on my male privilege.
Yeah, I know. But I'm really proud of the people of Hong Kong, that they are, standing up. And I saw the little thing on the weekend or last day or two where they were going around with American flags and stuff. I just thought that was awesome because I remember the first Tiananmen Square, and it is one of those 2.0. I really think it is.
I do too.
And and as far as the whole healthcare thing, what I wouldn't mind having someone similar to that, or even him on again. I also know too that the Medicare is not all it's cracked up to be.
No doubt.
I see it because my hubby is on it, and the doctor visits aren't all that bad, but my God, do they kill you when it comes to your prescriptions?
I know.
If for whatever reason, if you can't get something that's a generic, you are hosed.
Yep,
I look at the
right.
prices of his drugs, and my eyes roll out of my head. I go, damn, that's expensive.
Marlene, that's why I asked the question.
I get you. Yeah.
Sal's getting better and better, Marlene, isn't he?
Yes, you're doing fantastic, Sal. You really are.
He passed a test tonight. Tonight I had to say, hey, man, I'll be right back, man. Handle it.
Hey, one last thing, Marlene. Please stay out of Portland, okay?
Oh, I know. I saw that. I was going to say something about that. Yeah. Don't worry. I promise, Sal. I will stay out of Portland because the police and everybody over there are they're getting all ramped up for Saturday. And they're all ready to descend on the Antifas, if that should happen, which of course it will. And they're telling people to stay out of the way and yada, yada, yada.
Yeah, well, do that for now until you guys get your local government right. Thanks for calling, Marlene.
You're welcome. Bye-bye.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, the first thing I want to ask is if you could go to your computer, if you're there, and bring up a Google map and type in Hong Kong. And then I want you to hit the minus button several times until you can see at least half of China. I am going to probably surprise a lot of people with what I'm getting ready to say. But I have to tell you that Sundance of the Conservative Treehouse, I have the utmost respect and admiration and trust of his knowledge and his research capabilities and his ability to understand things. He wrote an article yesterday entitled U.S. intelligence positions Hong Kong as proxy conflict with China. Thankfully, President Trump sees the trap. The situation in Hong Kong is a geopolitical dynamic that will likely become much more volatile in the next few weeks, months, and or years. One constant in an ever-changing universe is how the uniparty in D.C. will attempt to drag the United States into the issues. First, and you can refer to your maps right now, Hong Kong is China. Whether a generation of people look back with regret to the time when Great Britain ceded the territory to Beijing is irrelevant. China has and will have full control over Hong Kong, and that's the way it is. That will not be reversed. Any effort for the people within Hong Kong to reverse the situation and escape the clutches of oppressive communism while retaining their liberty will only lead to massive bloodshed. Unfortunately for Hong Kong, as President Trump decouples the U.S. economy from the duplicitous communist Chinese enterprise, Beijing will grasp more control over the heavily Western-influenced economic strata in and around Hong Kong. Stand back and look at the bigger picture. President Trump has neutralized, essentially made irrelevant, Beijing's use of their proxy province, North Korea. President Trump has embraced Kim Jong-un not as much out of a position of warmth, but rather as a tactic to block China from weaponizing the DPRK, that's North Korea, as leverage during the U.S.-China trade confrontation. Beijing still uses their influence to shoot rockets, test missiles, etc., and President Trump ignores it now. Why? Because North Korea already has nuclear missiles. They're the same nuclear missiles China has. And it's silly now to think that China will remove nuclear weapons from China. Then why would U.S. policy try to remove nuclear weapons from the DPRK? They're the same nukes. Losing their DPRK leverage and understanding Beijing has no direct tools to defeat the United States in a direct economic confrontation means China will look elsewhere. That's where Hong Kong comes into play. Always remember, despite the U.S. tariffs on China, there are no tariffs on Hong Kong. I refer you back to your map. Do we feel sympathy watching a once-free society slip into the grips of an oppressive and totalitarian system now ruled by a communist dictator for life in Chairman Xi Jinping? Sure we do. But they made these choices decades ago. Now they have the consequences. Just like if we elect a Democrat president. That's me speaking. If Hong Kong tries to resist Beijing, they will be crushed. Hundreds more will be arrested and disappeared. Thousands, perhaps tens of thousands, will be killed. There is already an ongoing flight of wealth out of Hong Kong as the smart and wealthy position their assets overseas to survive the arrival of Beijing stormtroopers. The future for Hong Kong is dark. It is not going to end in anything resembling what exists today. Hong Kong will be Beijing 2.0 and will be entirely dominated by Chinese authoritarian rule. The difference in 2019 is the speed at which it's happening. Things are speeding up now in direct proportion to the severity of the U.S. decoupling our economy from China. As the Chinese economy weakens, Beijing will get more desperate. Many voices around President Trump will cry out for intervention. Watch for this, folks. The Uniparty will demand intervention and decry President Trump's instinct to stay away from the self-made crisis. It is not our issue. And engaging in Hong Kong only opens up another pathway for China to play the duplicitous leverage game. Beijing will play the "we'll spare, delay, or dilute the Hong Kong absorption if you agree to our trade terms game. Lies, lies, lies. President Trump needs to engage with China and Hong Kong as one nation, under one rule, with one motive and intent. Trying to win a Chinese trade conflict while parsing the economy of China from the economy of Hong Kong is like trying to parse the nukes in China from the nukes of North Korea. It sucks, ladies and gentlemen, but the bottom line, Hong Kong is lost. Hong Kong belongs to China. I refer you back to your map. Thousands of Hong Kongers will be killed or disappeared into camps as Beijing absorbs the region. The U.S. cannot continue to engage globally in an effort to protect nations from the consequences of their own decisions. If Great Britain wants to send an armada of battleships to warn Beijing against aggression with Hong Kong, then we should support. Wait, what? Oh, Great Britain no longer has a navy because the high-minded EU collective wanted to hold hands and sing "We Are the World" instead of planning to defend its interests for the past 20 years. I digress. Hong Kong is not our issue. The CIA will try to make it our issue. The State Department will try to make it our issue. The Uniparty in D.C., wait for Lindsey Graham, ladies and gentlemen, will try to make it our issue. John Bolton will try to make it our issue. Activists in Hong Kong will try to make it our issue. All of the far-left globalists will try to make it our issue. Nancy Pelosi and Mitt Romney will try to make it our issue, but it is not our issue. We pray for peace and send our prayers, but we cannot succeed in the larger economic confrontation with cunning China if we attempt to ignore the direct connective tissue between Beijing and Hong Kong. Instead, start applying the Chinese tariffs on Hong Kong as soon as Beijing tanks arrive. Tough love. Here endeth the lesson. Sal, I'm going to get feedback from that, but I don't care. I believe in it 100%.
Well, let's just go. There's just, there's a lot of, this is, a lot of breaking news is coming out of what's going on in Hong Kong. And there is an article that just came out an hour ago, and it gives maybe a little bit more, we're macro, micro. We're talking about maybe a macro thing that's happening in Hong Kong. And what does it have to do? It has to do with money. And this person believes that civil unrest in Hong Kong stems from, in part, stratospheric housing prices that have locked many residents out of the market. Hong Kong property prices have risen 300% since 2003. And I believe Hong Kong is the most expensive place to buy a home in the world. What this economist says that Beijing needs to stop consulting with property tycoons and take away their political power.
But the point is, and this is why I referred to the map as much, Hong Kong is China. There's nothing that we're going to do militarily over there. I mean, it's on the southern coast of mainland China.
Absolutely. You are correct, Hutch. We shouldn't touch that with a 100-foot pole.
We can't. Unless we're willing to go to war where the Congress declares war on China. There is no way that we should even acknowledge what's going on over there except for what the author states. Declare them part of China. They did it. I mean, this was their own setup. They should have never been anything other than China from the beginning. And I almost feel that about Taiwan, too. Because Taiwan's just across the bay, it's not that far away.
Right, but these property tycoons in Hong Kong issued a joint petition to newspapers calling on the public to cease the illegal protests and allow return of stability. These people have a huge financial interest.
They're waving American flags and singing the Star Spangled Banner like we're coming to their rescue. We're not coming.
Oh, we aren't coming to their rescue. Um, there is a lot of big money in Hong Kong, and China perhaps could be influenced by that. So,
oh yeah, they're going to absorb it and ruin it. They're going to absorb. I mean, this was a capitalist area of China that the British had colonized, and everything was good, and then Britain gave it back, and now they have to pay for that. I mean, it's I don't know. I know I heard some rhetoric and some reporting on my own station on WHBJ on Sunday with cries to, we must do something. What are we going to do? China's got over 1 billion people. We're not going to roll in there and occupy Hong Kong and set up some concertina wire and think that, they're not going to drum us right off the land and push us into the sea. I love our military and I love our might. And if we had to go to war with China, we wouldn't start in Hong Kong. I mean, it's just something that it's sad, and we have to pray for them. But we should never even consider any military intervention, in my opinion. And I'll take the hate mail, scrtv@live.com, or we've got like 9 minutes left, 412-206-6208. But that's my opinion, and I'm sticking to it.
We have the money for that too, right?
Yeah,
right.
Exactly. Just like we have the money for legal immigration. We don't have any money for either.
Right. We can just print that money, and it'll be no problem. We can pay this. We can pay for this, no problem.
What about Don Lemon, man? Not to change the subject drastically, unless you had something really pertinent on it.
No, not really. I just think there are some economic interests in there, and these wealthy people can, from what's being said, can possibly influence the situation.
Oh yeah,
maybe have some influence on Beijing.
How old is Chris Cuomo?
Old is Chris Cuomo.
Fredo Cuomo is 49 years old.
One more time.
Old is Chris Cuomo.
Fredo Cuomo is 49 years old.
You know what his buddy is currently being sued for? CNN's Don Lemon is being... These people are freaks, man. He's currently being sued for allegedly vigorously rubbing his genitalia, then sticking his fingers in a man's face. Don Lemon, the dumbest person that ever grabbed a microphone on television. This dude is the guy that seriously asked an aviation official if the Malaysian jet that went missing flew into a black hole. Thank you, Rush Limbaugh, for that. But what a disgusting dude, man.
How can you even give these people any credibility whatsoever? How can you? Even if part of this story is true.
I know.
And if I were to see these people out in public, they'd be the last people that I would approach. The very last. I'd go out on my way to avoid them. I would not want to talk to them one bit. They add no value to anything.
No.
Zero value. Zero.
You know, that clip that I played earlier with Dennis Prager, it's so real, man. These leftists are so angry and mean and evil. It's I was talking to my wife about it. I saw this person, I don't know if it was a man or a woman, but it was a person that pulled into a CVS. You know my CVS in Brookline. It's got a real tough parking lot.
Yeah, I know. Yep, right up the hill there. Yep.
Yeah, he pulled into that parking lot and didn't park in any designated parking spot. He parked right in the middle of the lot. Now, everybody that's trying to back out and back in and get these ridiculous parking spots can't do it. And he walks in, he's got blue hair and lots of tattoos. And I'm thinking, man, these people hate themselves, man. I'm so glad. I'm a 35-year Army veteran. I don't have one tattoo, not even an Army one, and don't want one, and don't really care. My son looks like a freaking MS-13. He doesn't have any on his face, but he looks like a Aryan Brotherhood person, and he's half Puerto Rican. You know what I mean? I don't know what this is with these tattoos and this coloring of the hair, but they must hate themselves. But I saw this story. Leftists threaten to murder El Paso victim's family after they meet with President Trump during his visit to Texas. I mean, we have to do something about this narrative that is feeding these sponges. That's what these millennials and earlier are. They're sponges, and they're sucking up this hatred that is going to be detrimental to us in the future. And when they come into power, if we let them, Sal, you and I are not going to be that young, ready to hit them with baseball bats. You know, this is something that is lurking, and we better pay attention to it and start addressing it.
Well, again, that's where we just got to keep our message out there. And going back to Mr. Prager's comments there, we have to start, if you haven't already, creating solid human beings who are going to exist on this earth after we are done with this existence on earth. So, get married, join a church, start helping people, do the right thing, have a conscience.
Right. Go talk to your neighbor, man. Go give him a iced tea or a coffee or something. Sal, great show tonight. I want everybody to go out there and support rsbnmusic.bandcamp.com, madisonrising.com, freemusicarchive.org, and thewarriorsong.com. How can people get in touch with you? And last comments, sir.
Last comments. Hey, thank you, Hutch. I appreciate all your kind comments earlier. Really trying to work pretty hard and listen to everyone and provide some insight. You can reach me on Twitter, Sal, SALATCWR. Catch me there. I'll reply back.
All right. Thank you, brother. Again, great show. I'm Hutch Bailey Jr. Thanks for letting us into your life for a couple hours. My goodness, this is the first show that we ended on time in a while. But I was analyzing that and felt it was time. Again, we have a good guest tomorrow on Friday with Jack. Go to SteelCityResistance.com. Become a Cold War Radio patron. Best thing you can do for us here at the show. It directly helps the co-host, communication director, and thanks to Mona Salama, our communication director, for providing all the outstanding guests. Stay tuned, ladies and gentlemen. We're going to talk about CPAC coming up. I got to think about it a little bit more, but starting to lean toward a Cold War Radio presence at CPAC. Not confirmed, but starting to lean that way. God bless.